This is the brand new Garmin Venu 4 that was announced yesterday, and this is the Garmin Forerunner 570 that launched a few months ago. These two watches are nearly identical in just about every way. I've been playing with the new Garmin Venu 4 for like the past 24 hours ever since I got it, and I've been scratching my head the whole time, wondering to myself, why do these two watches exist? You see, the Venu series from Garmin has always been designed to be a smartwatch that's sort of a wellness, health, and fitness device first. For those of us who want to keep track of their daily activity, their health metrics, their sleep, and occasionally go for a run or a bike ride. On top of that, with Venu, Garmin would always add in some extra nice to have features on the top to sort of sweeten the deal. And when they first launched the Venu, that would be things like adding an AMOLED display, where the Forerunner series always had a duller MIP display, which was more utilitarian. And back then, when the Venu first came out, that sort of made sense, but not so much today. Fast forward in time and we're here with the Garmin Venu 4 and Forerunner 570, and things are a lot different. Both of these watches have nearly identical spec sheets. They both have big, bright AMOLED displays. MIP displays are gone. They've got speakers and microphones built in for taking and making phone calls and interacting with your voice assistant. Both of these watches have internal storage for downloading music and apps. And on the sporty side of things, the Venu series has gotten a lot better as well. Now we get more advanced fitness tools on the Venu. We get training status, recovery advisor, and you can pair lots of different various accessories like external sensors to this watch as well. On top of that, this watch also gets a lot more activity profiles, and both of these watches now have navigation. You've got turn-by-turn navigation with a breadcrumb trail, unfortunately no maps. But this time around with the new Garmin Venu 4, Garmin has even added some extra features that the Forerunner 570 does not have, and in some ways that makes this the better watch, but it's more complicated than that. So in this video, we're going to talk about some of the interesting differences between these two watches, and I'm going to share my thoughts on which one might be right for you. Keep in mind, this is going to be pretty high level. I'm not going to just go in and regurgitate and rattle off the spec sheet and every little detail from Garmin's website. If you want to do that, you can go read it for yourself. Okay, let's jump back to the price for a minute. Both of these watches start at $549. Now, the Venu 4 on the right here does have an option that's $599, and that does come with a fancy leather band if you want to do that. And when it comes to sizes, the Venu 4 comes in two different sizes. There's a small footprint at 41 millimeters, and then there's the bigger form factor here at 45 millimeters. Now the 570 is bigger in both departments. There's still two sizes, but the small one is 42 millimeters, and the big one is 47 millimeters, as you can see here. Now that size difference at 47 millimeters isn't huge, and to be honest, when these watches are on my wrist, they pretty much feel the same, but there is a slight difference. Now with these displays, they are both really nice displays, and these are Garmin's latest generation of AMOLED displays that are super bright compared to previous models. Let's take a closer look at the hardware here. So the Venu 4 design has changed quite a bit. Previous models like the Venu 3 on the right here, you can see that this watch was primarily made out of plastic in the back, but on the Venu 4 they actually swapped that out, and the whole frame of the watch and even where the band connects is all made out of stainless steel now. The buttons are metal, the bezel is metal, the case is metal. The only plastic bits are on the back here where the heart rate sensor is. Now that change in material not only looks really nice, it has this kind of like raw metal look to it in this darker color, but even when it's on your wrist, it just feels, in my opinion, looks more premium. Another design change on the Venu 4 here is a really interesting one. If I flip to the watch to the right here, you can see that this watch features two buttons on the side and no buttons on the other side. Now, the Venu 3, the previous generation, actually had three buttons on one side. So we actually lost a button going from the Venu 3 to the Venu 4. I don't know why they did this. That extra button in the middle was actually kind of useful. You could map it to a shortcut and jump directly to whatever you wanted to do, and you could use it to access your voice assistant. Admittedly, you can still map these other buttons to be shortcuts, but it was just, I like more buttons. Now, because the Venu 4 only has two buttons on one side, that means you're gonna have to interact with the touchscreen of this watch. Now, this is a really nice touchscreen, but there is something to keep in mind with that. If you are someone who goes swimming often, you run in the rain, or you do activities with gloves on, that makes this touchscreen a little bit harder to use. Jumping over to the 570 now, the Forerunner 570 has a totally different build. So this watch is primarily made out of plastic. You can see the sides are all plastic. The buttons are metal, and it does get a stainless steel bezel as well. That's not to say this watch is made poorly, it just doesn't have those metal accents like the Venu 4. But the main difference on the Forerunner 570 is that this watch gets Garmin's 5-button layout. We've got 2 buttons on this side and 3 buttons on this side. And what that means is you can actually go into the settings of this watch and turn off the touchscreen of this watch entirely and use everything directly from the buttons. Now, personally, I value that. I like to be able to just scroll through the menu and access things and select things without needing to touch the screen. Jumping back to the Venu 4. Now, one of the major changes on this watch, a lot like some of the higher end models, is that this watch features Garmin's built-in flashlight, as you can see there. You can access this by simply holding the back button down here for a couple of seconds. It turns on, and when it does turn on, you can also toggle the brightness of the flashlight by swiping up and down on the screen here, and you can toggle it into a red mode as well. Now, this built-in flashlight is super useful. There are some settings in the watch where you can actually use this for when you're running or cycling. It'll blink and kind of add visibility to your activities. To be honest, I never really use the flashlight on these watches in that capacity. What this flashlight is really useful for is all of those other things you do in your life. If you're trying to get to the bathroom in the middle of the night in a dark room and you need to navigate your way, or if you're trying to find your kids' toys under the couch, that's when this becomes incredibly useful. And to be honest, I use that feature just about every single day on my Garmin Fenix 8 here. Still though, if you want the flashlight, the Venu 4 is going to be the one to get because, again, the 570 does not have it. Flipping the watches over, taking a look at the back here, you can see both have a very similar looking heart rate sensor. These both feature Garmin's latest generation optical heart rate sensor that also picks up blood oxygen saturation as well. However, there is a difference. The Garmin Venu 4 features built-in ECG or electrocardiogram. You can share those details with your doctor or medical professional via PDF from the app, and it's kind of interesting. Now, the Garmin Forerunner 570 here, even though it has the exact same heart rate sensor, does not support that feature. Other than ECG though, when it comes to raw accuracy of the heart rate coming out of these watches, I've tested this sensor countless times on multiple different Garmin watches, and in my history, I find these to be pretty accurate. Next up, let's talk GPS or GNSS. Both of these watches feature very similar GPS or GNSS technology, and this is kind of a big update for the Venu 4. So on the Venu 3, that was a single band device. It could only triangulate your position over a single frequency, whereas the new Venu 4 is now a multi-band enabled device, which is sort of like the gold standard these days. Not only that, both these watches, as you can see, also feature Garmin's Sat IQ technology, which is like an auto select feature. And this will toggle your GPS settings automatically based on your signal strength when you're out on your next activity. When it comes to battery life between these two watches, it's a real head scratcher because both of these watches have decent battery life, but both have differences in their two different sizes that makes one better than the other in different scenarios. I'll put a chart up on the screen to help you out here and talk through some of it, but it is confusing. You see, with the Garmin Venu 4, with the larger form factor, you get a little bit more battery life compared to the 570. Get a couple of extra days in standard smartwatch mode and a couple of extra hours in some of the GPS modes. I did find that odd considering the 570 here is supposed to be like the athlete watch for those longer adventures, and the Venu is more marketed towards like that wellness crowd, but that is what it is. On the flip side though, on the smaller form factor watches that I don't have here, the Garmin Forerunner 570 outperforms the Venu 4 in that scenario. However, not by much, as you can see here. Still though, both these watches should have enough juice to get you through your next marathon or even your next ultra marathon, as long as you're running something like a 50 miler and not a 100 miler or more. Okay, let's talk user interface differences between these two watches. Now, they're pretty much the same when it comes to the user interface. They're a lot like every other Garmin out there. However, Garmin likes to add sort of a skin or a theme to their watches to represent who they're marketed towards. So as you can see here, they both have these truncated widgets you can view, but they both look a little bit different. Where the Forerunner has these like squared off edges and kind of simple text, and it kind of just gets right to the point. It doesn't have a lot of fancy graphics. On the Venu 4, it's got these rounded graphics and some more gradients and colors and stuff to make it a little bit more interesting. In practical use, it really doesn't matter. It'll give you the same information on either one. They just look a little bit different. When it comes to health metrics on these watches, they're very similar there as well. Both these watches do all the basics like your step count, your calories burned, your sleep, your HRV status, along with more useful features like Garmin's body battery, which I really like. But on top of all the usual stuff you find on a Garmin fitness device, Garmin's added a couple of other things to the Venu 4 that don't exist on any other Garmin watch right now. So the first one you can see here is called health status. The idea with health status though is that it will roll in several factors like your heart rate, your HRV, your respiration rate, your skin temperature, and your SpO2 or blood oxygen saturation while you sleep. And after some time of wearing your device, health status will look at all these factors, establish a baseline, and let you know if there's anything out of the ordinary or an outlier that you should pay attention to. Now, this is super similar to other devices out there like the Whoop Band or even Apple with their Vitals app. And on the new Venu 4, this feature is built directly into the watch. Now, an important note here is that the Venu 4 is not the only watch supporting this feature. In fact, this is going to roll out to all Garmin Connect users for free to anyone who has a modern day Garmin watch. So you'll start to see this health status thing pop up within the app on your phone, even though you don't see it on your watch. The Garmin Venu 4 is just the first watch to have it embedded in the watch, though I'm sure that'll change as time goes on. On top of health status though, Garmin also rolled out another feature called lifestyle logging. Lifestyle logging is a new feature that'll allow you to sort of check off certain factors like alcohol consumption, caffeine, late meals, or more on a given day. And then after you input that information, you can track it over time and see how these habits affect things like your HRV or your sleep or various other things. The idea here is to help you identify what factors aren't helping you and hurting you more, and then you can change your habits over time. But again, this feature is available to all Garmin devices, not just the Venu 4. It's just only here as a widget on the Venu 4. Probably will change. Another new feature on the Venu 4 pertains to sleep, and that is buried within the sleep coach here. So if I dive into this, it'll have the typical sleep coach screen that is also available on the Forerunner 570 here. But if I scroll down, you're going to see that there's a new feature here for sleep alignment and again for sleep consistency down below here. So if I dive into sleep alignment, you can see this little graph here. Unfortunately, mine's not unlocked yet because you have to wear it for 3 weeks before you get this information, even though my Garmin account has like 5 years of data to go through. They didn't unlock it. But this little graph, when it becomes unlocked, will actually display how your sleep compares to your circadian rhythm. And down below that here, we do have sleep consistency, and this will just show how consistent I am with my fall asleep and wake up times. With these new sleep metrics, it's another case where Garmin included them on the watch itself, but this is also available in Garmin Connect if you don't have a Venu 4. It's only here on the Venu 4 exclusively for the time being. Okay, let's talk training and working out with these watches because they have a ton of features. I'm gonna miss some stuff. I can't list everything in this video. So when it comes to activity profiles, both these watches have an absolute boatload of activity profiles to go through. You've got everything from the standard running, walking, cycling, strength training, yoga, mobility, whatever between these two models. There are some differences between them, so definitely check out the full list on Garmin's website if you have a certain activity you want to track. But for the most part, they are very similar. On the Garmin Venu 4 though, it does get one unique activity profile, and that is under multisport here. So both these watches can do things like triathlon and multisport mode. However, on the Venu 4, you do get this mixed session, and this will allow you to combine multiple different activities, not just your standard swim, bike, run together. So you could do something like a strength training workout and then do mobility and then do a run and then a bike ride instead of on the Forerunner 570 here, which is limited to the more traditional swim, bike, run kind of workout. Hopefully that makes its way to the 570 as well. All right, we've reached the final segment of this video where I just want to run through a quick pros and cons list to try to just wrap this video up. So advantages to the Venu 4. It's got a smaller form factor in both sizes. So if you have smaller wrists and you prefer a smaller watch, this might be the way to go. On top of that, we get the built-in flashlight, which I find a lot of value in and I really wish was on the 570. The Venu 4 is also ECG enabled with the optical heart rate sensor on the back, gets slightly more battery life on the larger form factor model, supports mixed multi-sport session activities, and has all of those new on-device health metrics that are in Garmin Connect. sleep alignment, consistency, health status, and lifestyle logging. Though this is available for everybody, it's just directly on the watch with the Venu 4. Jumping over to the Forerunner 570 and the advantages to this watch. It's got more buttons, and that's kind of a big deal, and might be the deciding factor alone. You can use it with gloves on, use it in the rain, you get the idea. Having more buttons, in my opinion, is pretty valuable. Another advantage is the slightly larger footprint, because this watch in the bigger form factor does get a bigger display, which is kind of nice, though it's just slightly bigger. And finally, the smaller form factor of the 570 gets a little bit more battery life compared to the smaller Venu 4. If that matters to you. And that brings me to the title of this video. Why do both of these watches need to exist? In my mind, I would just give the Forerunner 570 the metal case from the Venu, add ECG on the heart rate sensor, and put in a built-in flashlight, and drop the whole Venu thing altogether. In reality, do people really want less buttons like on the Venu 4? And is anyone really annoyed to have 5 buttons? I've never heard that complaint before. At this point, I feel like Garmin just has simply way too many options that are way too similar with way too much feature overlap these days. But that's just my simple opinion, and I guess they probably know what they're doing with their marketing material and demographics and who these watches are going to be designed for, but still, they are just so darn similar. I'm not trying to downplay these watches at all, because at the end of the day, both of these watches are awesome, and I don't think you'd be disappointed with either one, and they have a crazy amount of features. So the decision here between the 570 and Venu 4 is really up to you. I'd say if you don't absolutely need 5 buttons like on the 570 here, the Venu 4 is the way to go. I like the premium feel and the build quality. I love the built-in flashlight, and it's got a couple of extra perks as well. But if you can't give up those extra buttons, the Forerunner 570 is still a great option, or even better, the 970, if you can afford it, might be the way to go. But that's just my opinion, and I'm just some guy here on YouTube. And now's the point where I want to hear from you in the comments down below. Are you going to go for the new Garmin Venu 4 or the Forerunner 570 or something else entirely different? Let me know in the comments down below. I would love to hear from you. And as usual, when you're done commenting, it would mean a lot to me if you would consider hitting that thumbs up button and subscribing to the channel down below, because that really helps me out. And also check out all of the links in the description down below, where you can head over and buy your brand new Venu 4 or Forerunner 570 or any other watch I might have mentioned in this video, including links over to my friends at trackbetter.com who have free 2-day shipping and a great return policy. Okay, that's it. There's still a lot more coming, so stay tuned and I will see you very soon. Okay? Bye.